Listen to me, daughter of destiny. Listen to me, woman of purpose. There is a voice you have been hearing deep inside your spirit, but you have been afraid to accept it because it does not sound like the voice the world taught you to obey. The world taught you to be nice. The world taught you to be quiet. The world taught you to smile even when your heart was breaking. The world taught you to accept less than what your soul was created for. But today, God is saying something different. God is saying, stop being a nice girl. Because the nice girl the world created is not the woman God created. The nice girl says yes when her spirit is screaming no. The nice girl tolerates disrespect because she fears rejection. The nice girl hides her strength because she fears intimidation. The nice girl sacrifices her identity to keep people comfortable. But God did not create you to be comfortable for others. God created you to be powerful in Him. Many of you listening to me today have been imprisoned, not by chains on your hands, but by chains in your mind. Chains made of approval, chains made of fear, chains made of the need to be liked. You have been taught that being loved means being silent. You have been taught that being accepted means being weak. You have been taught that being faithful means being passive. But listen to me carefully. Faithfulness is not weakness. Faithfulness is strength under authority. Faithfulness is courage under pressure. Faithfulness is standing firm when everything around you is shaking. There is a difference between being kind and being controlled. Kindness comes from strength. Control comes from fear. The enemy does not fear the nice girl. The enemy fears the awakened woman. The enemy fears the woman who knows who she is in God. The enemy fears the woman who is no longer begging for validation from people because she is already validated by heaven. You have been apologizing for your light. You have been apologizing for your voice. You have been apologizing for your presence. But hear this truth today. You are not here to apologize for existing. You are here to manifest divine purpose. Some of you have stayed in places God told you to leave because you wanted to be nice. Some of you have allowed people to drain your spirit because you wanted to be nice. Some of you have buried your calling because you did not want to offend anyone. But obedience to God will offend those who benefit from your silence. When God begins to elevate you, not everyone will celebrate you. When God begins to strengthen you, not everyone will understand you. When God begins to separate you, not everyone will remain with you, because elevation requires separation. You cannot carry everyone into your destiny. There are relationships that were assignments, not attachments. There are seasons that were lessons, not lifetimes. There are people who are part of your story, but not part of your future. And the nice girl struggles to release what God has already released. Because the nice girl fears loneliness more than disobedience. But hear me today, loneliness in obedience is better than company in disobedience. Some of you have been shrinking yourself so others would not feel threatened. You lowered your standards so others would not feel insecure. You hid your intelligence so others would not feel intimidated. But God did not create you to shrink. God created you to shine. When God placed His Spirit inside you, He did not place weakness. He placed authority. He placed fire. He placed identity. You are not weak. You were conditioned to believe you were weak. You are not powerless. You were trained to surrender your power. But today, something is shifting in your spirit. Today, something is breaking in your mind. Today, something is awakening in your soul. Because you are beginning to realize that the version of yourself you have been living is not the version God created. You have been living a survival identity instead of a divine identity. Survival says, do whatever it takes to keep people. Divine identity says, do whatever it takes to keep God. Survival says, be who they want you to be. Divine identity says, be who God created you to be. Survival says, stay silent to avoid conflict. Divine identity says, speak truth even if your voice shakes. Some of you are afraid that if you stop being the nice girl, People will leave you, and that fear has been controlling your decisions. But hear this truth. The people who leave when you become who God created you to be were never assigned to your destiny. They were assigned to your comfort. And comfort is the greatest enemy of transformation. God is not interested in your comfort. God is interested in your calling. Because your calling will impact lives you have never seen. Your calling will break chains you did not create. Your calling will open doors no one can close. But you cannot walk in your calling while hiding in approval. You cannot walk in authority while living in fear. You cannot walk in truth while living in performance. Some of you have been performing for acceptance instead of living in authenticity. You smile when you are hurting. You agree when you are disagreeing. You submit when you should be standing. But God is not calling you to perform. God is calling you to transform. Transformation requires courage. Transformation requires separation. Transformation requires truth. Truth about who you are. Truth about what you deserve. Truth about what God placed inside you. You are not just someone's option. You are someone's assignment. You are not just someone's convenience. You are someone's destiny connection. You are not just existing. You are positioned. Every pain you endured positioned you. Every betrayal you survived strengthened you. Every rejection you faced redirected you. What you thought was breaking you was building you. Because God will never waste your suffering. Your tears were not weakness. Your tears were preparation. Your silence was not emptiness. Your silence was formation. Your isolation was not abandonment. Your isolation was protection. Because God will separate you before He elevates you. Some of you thought you were being rejected, but you were being redirected. God was protecting you from environments that could not sustain your future. God was protecting you from relationships that could not support your purpose. God was protecting you from versions of yourself that could not carry your destiny. But the nice girl does not understand divine protection. The nice girl calls it loss. The awakened woman calls it alignment. Today, God is calling you into alignment. Alignment with truth. Alignment with purpose. Alignment with identity. You cannot be both the person they expect and the person God created. You must choose. Choose comfort or choose calling. Choose approval or choose authority. Choose fear or choose faith. Faith is not passive. Faith is active. Faith is bold. Faith moves. Faith speaks. Faith stands. Faith refuses to shrink. Because faith knows that what God placed inside you is greater than what is happening around you. Some of you have been waiting for permission to become yourself, but heaven has already given you permission. You do not need approval to walk in obedience. You do not need validation to walk in truth. You do not need acceptance to walk in purpose, because your identity does not come from people. Your identity comes from God. People did not create you. People cannot define you. People did not call you. People cannot cancel you. When God calls you, no one can silence you. When God positions you, no one can remove you. When God anoints you, no one can replace you. But you must stop abandoning yourself to keep others. You must stop betraying your spirit to maintain relationships. You must stop silencing your voice to avoid discomfort. Because every time you abandon yourself, you delay your destiny. Every time you betray your truth, you weaken your authority. Every time you silence your voice, you strengthen your fear. But today, fear is losing its grip. Today, fear is losing its control. Today, fear is losing its voice. Because truth is rising inside you. Truth that you are not weak. Truth that you are not small. Truth that you are not invisible. Truth that you are chosen. Truth that you are called. Truth that you are appointed. You were not created to live in the shadows of others. You were created to walk in the light of divine authority. You were not created to beg for love. You were created to embody love. You were not created to chase acceptance. You were created to attract alignment. The moment you stop being the nice girl, you will start becoming the real woman God created. A woman who does not apologize for her boundaries. A woman who does not negotiate her worth. A woman who does not abandon her truth. A woman who understands that obedience to God is greater than approval from people. Because people change. God does not. People leave. God remains. People reject. God restores. People misunderstand. God reveals. Some of you have been misunderstood because you are evolving. You are no longer the version of yourself people were comfortable with. And they will call you different. They will call you changed. They will call you distant. But you are not distant. You are aligned. You are not changed. You are revealed. You are not different. You are awakened. The woman you are becoming is not weak. She is fearless. She does not seek permission. She seeks purpose. She does not seek approval. She seeks obedience. She does not seek comfort. She seeks calling. And when you walk in this truth, something powerful happens. You stop chasing what is not meant for you. You stop begging for what does not belong to you. You stop forcing what God has not assigned to you. Because you understand that what is yours cannot be taken. What is yours cannot be blocked. What is yours cannot be destroyed. Because God protects what He appoints. You are not behind. You are being prepared. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are not lost. You are being led. Every delay had purpose. Every detour had direction. Every closed door had protection. You were never abandoned. You were being refined. Refined in silence. Refined in pain. Refined in waiting. Because God prepares His daughters in private before He reveals them in public. And when the time comes, no one will be able to stop what God has started in your life. But you must release the identity that kept you small. You must release the mindset that kept you silent. You must release the fear that kept you obedient to people instead of obedient to God. This is your moment of awakening. This is your moment of truth. This is your moment of transformation. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be aligned. You are not here to be accepted. You are here to be appointed. You are not here to be comfortable. You are here to be called. So stand up in your spirit. Stand up in your authority. Stand up in your truth. Because the nice girl survived, but the awakened woman will lead. And nothing will ever be the same again. Listen to me carefully. There is a version of you that the world has been applauding, but heaven has been waiting for you to release. There is a version of you that knows how to smile on command, how to say the right words, how to carry the right image, how to perform the right emotions, so that no one sees the battle inside your soul. You mastered the art of performance, not because you wanted to deceive others, but because you were trying to survive environments that never made space for your truth. You learned early that acceptance was given to the version of you that was easy to control. You learned that love was offered to the version of you that was easy to manage. You learned that approval was reserved for the version of you that did not challenge expectations. And slowly, without realizing it, you began to disconnect from your authentic identity and attach yourself to a performed identity. Performance became your protection. Performance became your shield. Performance became the mask you wore to avoid rejection, to avoid abandonment, to avoid conflict. You convinced yourself that this performance was necessary, that this performance was wisdom, that this performance was maturity. But deep inside your spirit, there was always a tension, a quiet discomfort, a silent resistance, because your soul was never created to live inside a performance. Your soul was created to live inside truth. There is a difference between living and performing. Performing requires constant monitoring. You must constantly watch your words, constantly adjust your reactions, constantly suppress your instincts. Performing is exhausting because it requires you to be someone you are not. It requires you to abandon your natural expression in order to maintain artificial acceptance. It requires you to betray your inner voice in order to preserve external validation. And over time, performance begins to drain your spiritual strength. It begins to weaken your confidence. It begins to distort your identity. Because the more you perform, the more distant you become from who you really are. And the tragedy is not that others cannot see you. The tragedy is that you begin to lose sight of yourself. You begin to forget what your real voice sounds like. You begin to forget what your real desires feel like. You begin to forget what your real convictions stand on. Because performance replaces authenticity with strategy. Performance replaces truth with calculation. Performance replaces identity with image. But there comes a moment in your life when your spirit becomes tired of pretending. There comes a moment when your soul begins to resist the mask you have been wearing. There comes a moment when the performance can no longer sustain the calling inside you. Because performance may attract attention, but it cannot sustain divine power. Power does not flow through performance. Power flows through authenticity. Power flows through alignment. Power flows through truth. The reason you have felt blocked is not because you lack potential. It is because performance has been restricting your spiritual authority. Performance forces you to depend on people's reactions. Performance forces you to depend on people's approval. Performance forces you to depend on people's acceptance. But true power does not depend on people. True power depends on alignment with divine identity. When you perform, you give people control over your emotional state. Their approval makes you feel worthy. Their rejection makes you feel small. Their acceptance makes you feel secure. Their criticism makes you feel weak. And without realizing it, you place your identity in their hands. But your identity was never meant to be managed by people. Your identity was meant to be anchored in truth. There is a version of you that does not perform. There is a version of you that does not beg for acceptance. There is a version of you that does not compromise convictions for comfort. That version of you is not weak. That version of you is powerful. That version of you is free. Because freedom begins where performance ends. You are not created to manage perceptions. You were created to manifest purpose. You were not created to impress people. You were created to impact lives. You were not created to maintain image. You were created to walk in authority. But authority cannot coexist with performance. Authority requires authenticity. Authority requires courage. Authority requires surrender to truth. Many of you have been afraid to stop performing because performance gave you access. Performance gave you acceptance. Performance gave you relationships. Performance gave you opportunities. And you feared that if you stopped performing, you would lose what performance helped you gain. But hear this truth. Anything you gain through performance must be sustained through performance. And what must be sustained through performance will eventually exhaust your spirit. Because you were never designed to live under the pressure of constant pretending. Your spirit was designed to live in freedom. Your spirit was designed to live in truth. Your spirit was designed to live in alignment. And the moment you stop performing, something shifts inside you. Something awakens inside you. Something rises inside you. Because you are no longer dividing your energy between maintaining an image and honoring your truth. All your energy begins to flow toward your purpose. All your strength begins to flow toward your calling. All your clarity begins to flow toward your direction. Performance creates confusion because it disconnects you from your instincts. But authenticity creates clarity because it reconnects you to your identity. When you stop performing, your decisions become stronger. Your voice becomes clearer. Your presence becomes heavier. Your spirit becomes unshakable because you are no longer acting from fear. You are acting from truth. Fear forces performance. Truth releases power. Fear says, be who they want you to be. Truth says, be who you were created to be. Fear says, hide your strength. Truth says, walk in your authority. Fear says, protect their comfort. Truth says, protect your calling. The reason performance has held you captive is because performance creates the illusion of safety. It makes you believe that if you maintain the right image, you can control outcomes. It makes you believe that if you say the right things, you can prevent rejection. It makes you believe that if you behave the right way, you can secure acceptance. But performance is not safety. Performance is imprisonment. Because you are constantly living under the pressure of maintaining something that is not real. And anything that is not real cannot sustain real power. Your true power begins to manifest when you release the need to control how people perceive you. Your true power begins to manifest when you release the need to be understood by everyone. Your true power begins to manifest when you release the need to be accepted by those who were never aligned with your purpose. Because power does not come from being accepted. Power comes from being aligned. Alignment gives you confidence that does not depend on applause. Alignment gives you peace that does not depend on circumstances. Alignment gives you strength that does not depend on validation. When you stop performing, you stop negotiating your worth. When you stop performing, you stop shrinking your presence. When you stop performing, you stop abandoning your truth. And something extraordinary begins to happen. You begin to attract what is real. Real connections, real opportunities, real alignment. Because authenticity filters out what performance tolerated. Authenticity removes what performance entertained. Authenticity exposes what performance concealed. Performance attracts what responds to image. Authenticity attracts what responds to truth. And truth carries power. There is power in your real voice. There is power in your real presence. There is power in your real identity. You do not need to exaggerate your strength. Your strength already exists. You do not need to manufacture your value. Your value already exists. You do not need to perform your worth. Your worth already exists. But performance made you forget. Performance made you doubt. Performance made you question what was always inside you. Because performance trains you to look outward for confirmation instead of inward for alignment. But the moment you stop performing, your awareness sharpens. You begin to see clearly. You begin to feel clearly. You begin to discern clearly. Because performance numbs your instincts, but authenticity activates your spiritual sensitivity. You begin to recognize environments that do not honor your truth. You begin to recognize relationships that do not respect your identity. You begin to recognize patterns that do not support your growth. And you no longer feel obligated to remain where you are not aligned. Because performance tolerates misalignment. Authenticity rejects it. You begin to stand differently. You begin to speak differently. You begin to carry yourself differently. Because you are no longer seeking permission to exist in your fullness. You are no longer waiting for approval to honor your truth. You are no longer dependent on external validation to confirm your internal identity. Your power was never missing. Your power was hidden beneath performance. And as performance falls away, power rises. Power in your voice, power in your presence, power in your decisions, power in your boundaries, power in your identity, because your power was never given by people, and your power cannot be taken by people. Your power is activated when you align with truth. And alignment begins the moment you stop performing and start becoming who you were always created to be.